Welcome, welcome to today's training. We are diving into leadership, as this is I Am a Leader, but we are coming at it from the angle of transparency, the doorway of transparency. So we are unveiling transparency and leadership today. And we're also going to bring in the elements of air and fire, because they offer a beautiful alchemy that can support us in this process of transparency. Now, I use the word transparency, and often when we think about transparency, we think that it means that we need to stand naked in front of thousands and thousands of people and bare our soul. And so I'm inviting you to feel how transparency is not necessarily oversharing and standing vulnerably in front of a whole lot of people. Transparency is about not holding anything that is not true. In other words, that is false. And when I say holding, I'm meaning sharing, feeling, allowing yourself to receive, being in the energy of anything that is not true for you. And oftentimes we are aware that we're not being entirely truthful with ourselves, or that we are hiding parts of ourselves because we have a fear that something is going to happen if we come out and stand in our truth and our power. So we put on a mask, or we reveal parts of ourselves, or we don't quite share the full truth, whatever the case is. And we allow essentially an illusion, a mask of who we are, to be what we present to the world, but what we present to ourselves true to, because we are not being completely honest and truthful with ourselves first and foremost. And so this brings me to leadership, because it was interesting to me when the name I'm a Leader dropped. There was resistance from me because I was resisting the idea of leadership when you are standing in front of a whole lot of people and saying, hey, follow me, follow me. That's not what leadership is. Leadership is about having the courage to be truthful with yourself, honoring all aspects of who you are, and allowing all aspects of who you are to be what guides you. So allowing your natural fire, your natural gifts, your natural talents, not compromising on who you are and limiting who you are in order to fit into certain spaces, in order to be accepted by certain people, in order to follow a certain requirements, not compromising on who you are, but honoring who you are and standing proudly in the allness, the good and the bad, the glory of the whole of you. And that requires courage, because there is a process of, okay, I'm going to be honest with myself. I'm going to do the inner reflection. I'm going to do the inner work. And hey, me, I resisted, and still do at times, resist the pull inwards to do the self-reflection. Why? Because The illusion, the masks, what is not true feels safer than the alternative of doing an internal excavation of what's actually going on, because we think if we do an external excavation, everything is just going to come crumbling down. But here's the truth. And the truth is that, and this brings in that beautiful quote that I probably bring into almost every teaching. I'm just making sure I am recording. Yes. The truth has legs. It always stands. When everything else in the room has blown up, the only thing that will be left standing is the truth. And that is the truth. In other words, the truth is what holds the power. The truth is what will be left standing. And so the reason why we are sometimes afraid of, fearful of, whether it's a conscious or subconscious fear that we have of doing the inner work, is that we think it's all going to come crumbling down. And we think that it's safer to continue with what we actually deep down know is not in alignment with us. We know that this is actually not what we want, what we desire, whether it is in a relationship with someone, or whether it is to do with work, whether it is your own business, whether it is your kids, whatever the situation is. If I just bring in the example of business, often, and many of my clients, and for myself personally, at a stage in my life when I was running a business that deep down I knew wasn't in full alignment with my gifts and my talents. That was the website and branding business, but it felt safer to continue doing that than starting to embrace the soul work. And the irony is that the illusions and that we operate in, that we tell ourselves, oh, well, it's safer to do this. The irony is that that illusion is what has wobbly legs. The truth will always stand when everything blows up. The truth is where the power is. The truth is what has the stable legs, is grounded, is strong, holds deep wisdom, because our truth is also held in Mother Earth. And so bringing in the earth element, and I will start talking about parallel realities, but something that that dropped in, that I now deeply understand, is that Mother Earth holds our parallel realities in this lifetime in her beautiful layers of Mother Earth. Everything is held in Mother Earth. She is our home. And so she holds not just this timeline, not just your life, not just the timeline of humanity at this point in time for humanity, but she's been around for millions and millions and millions of years. So she holds all of that wisdom, and she holds all the parallel realities and the multiple timelines for you in this lifetime. She holds that. And so the truth is powerful. The wisdom that you have access to when you start really being embodied in your truth. Because when you are embodied in your truth, your channel opens up and you just have access to so much more information, so much more knowledge, but not knowledge at a surface level. This is an understanding. This is a knowing. This is wisdom, deep wisdom. When people talk about codes, these are cellular codes vibrating in your cells. It's glorious what we have access to at this point in time. So getting back to truth, transparency. So transparency is not about oversharing, being vulnerable when you don't want to be vulnerable because then it's not in alignment. It's about first being truthful with yourself and through the lens of unconditional love. So this is where the air element comes in beautifully, because the air element gives us the gift of seeing through the lens of unconditional love. Unconditional love, meaning that the love is unconditional. There are no conditions. There are no expectations. There is no should do, must do, have to. There is no judgment. There is no judgment. And I wrote something here about judgment. When we judge, we distort. And so the air element gives us the gift of just simply seeing the truth, simply seeing what is. There's a neutral energy. There's a peaceful energy. This is unconditional love. And so you yourself can work with the element of air, the unconditional love. And you can imagine that you're putting on a lens of unconditional love and bring yourself into the idea of, okay, I'm going to see all parts of me. And I'm going to see all parts of me through this lens of unconditional love, through this lens of non-judgment. Just seeing it for what it is. This is often when people talk about being the observer. Seeing the truth. This is leadership. Because we cannot lead ourselves if we do not understand who we are. And the air element gives us that gift of seeing who we are. And in seeing who we are, understanding who we are, but it's again deeper than that, it's knowing who you are. And in knowing who you are, you can be who you are. And there's that being, that energy of being, versus when we are just in our heads and we are overthinking. So the shadow side of air is think, 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 because we're trying to understand, we're trying to control, we're trying to figure it out. And we don't realize that that clarity comes when we drop into trust. When we simply set the intention that we are going to be truthful, let the truth rise. And you can do that through journaling. And I will give you a few journaling prompts at the end of this teaching. You can do it through daydreaming. You can do it with me, if you work with me one-on-one. But I'm encouraging you to invite in the element of air to support you, because the elements bring alchemy. Whether you work with the elements or whether you work with other tools, whether it's crystals or oracle cards, all of these spiritual tools are gifts. They are bridges that connect us to divine support that we have and connect us to alchemy. And again, we're always connected. So you may get to a stage where you don't need any tools, you're just connected, and that is perfect too. But if you feel that you need support, then bring that support in. And alchemy is shifting from one state into another. And so my personal journey with the elements is that when I moved into fire, I was able to start seeing energetic patterns that were playing out. So in other words, seeing the illusions, seeing the untruths, seeing the parts where I was not, where I was holding, I want to say holding falsity. I don't know if falsity is a word, but elements that are just false. In other words, they're not true. And then elements that are not true that you're holding become heavy. And so you may actually start to feel drained, physically drained, emotionally drained, the more that you hold things that are not true to you, that are not in alignment with you. But the gift of fire brought in alchemy, in seeing what is not true, I was able to release it. Simply in seeing, I was able to release. That is the gift of alchemy, transmutation, where we're shifting in an instant, and it doesn't always work that way. And remember, we're dealing with all of this in the energy of non-judgment. So please don't judge yourself in this process. This is a gentle process. This is a peaceful process. And yes, it may bring up a lot of emotions, but allow those emotions to flow. And the daily drop-ins today are guiding you through this process as well. We worked with fire this morning. We worked with air in the afternoon drop-in to allow the fire to transmute the falsity, the untruths. There's a better word, the untruths. And air to give you the clarity to see the unseen, to see who you really are. When I moved into air in a sacred circle, sacred sisterhood, and I embodied the element of air for the very, very, very first time, it was alchemy in the sense that I felt as if I was in my body for the first time. This is who I am. This is me. This is Nikki. I don't know who I'd been up until that stage, up until that point. Of course, I had been me, but I didn't have the understanding and I didn't have the deep knowing of who I am. And it's an energetic shift. That's what alchemy brings. That's why this entire process, we're going to be connecting into the concept of alchemy so that you really open up to the truth that this is here for you. When you see the truth, you can release it. You can use your tools to have this beautiful transmutation so that you are deeply embodied in the truth of who you are. And when you see who you are and you know who you are and you feel to be who you are, it's like everything just clicks. That's the feeling. It's like, this is who I am. There's a joy and excitement that rises, and this is the fire element as well, because now you get to show up in this energy, in this joy of who you truly are, not who you have been pretending to be, who you have been telling yourself you are, not based on the expectations that you have placed on yourself, that others have placed on you, that society has placed on you. Can you feel the heaviness? It's releasing all of that and then just standing in your truth and your power. This is me. And I can share with you that what happens is your boundaries, it's like they naturally rise up. It's almost as if there is it's like you're standing in the center of a ring of fire. Those are your boundaries. No one's going to even question your boundaries because it's radiating out of you. Your values, your standards, your alignment, because you now know who you are deeply, at a deep, deep, deep level of embodiment. And this is why transparency is so important. Being true to yourself. But how can you be true to yourself if you do not know yourself? Because these illusions have become what feels to be the truth, and then they feel safe. And so I'm inviting you to trust that your truth is way more powerful than any illusions. It's way more stable. It's grounded. Mother Earth is holding that. She's holding you. That brings in the earth element. And the water element comes in too when we allow our emotions to rise, but not to stagnate. So we don't allow ourselves to drown in our emotions, but to let them flow. There is movement. And the air element brings us to that clarity that the air element brings, because now you are seeing the truth. It gets you into momentum and movement, because when you are seeing the truth and you are accepting the truth and your channel is open, and then the divine downloads start dropping in, and then you take action. But now you're taking action that is aligned. You're taking action that is coming from your truth of who you are. And you're taking the action in a way where you are doing it in alignment. So if that action involves sharing, standing up, expressing, communicating, organizing, now you're doing it in a way that suits you, that works for you, because you are no longer bound by the expectations or the rules of society that you've given yourself, that others have given you. Okay, I just want to check my notes and see if I'm missing anything here. So I've just written here, knowing versus understanding. Knowing is that deep, deep, deep truth. It's embodiment, essentially. So we can understand a concept, we can understand a spiritual concept, we can understand something about ourselves. Like, well, I know that I am a dreamer. Pisces. I know that I'm a dreamer, but do I understand deeply? So there's understanding, and then there's knowing, which is deep, deep, deep. And understanding, as I said, the shadow side of the air element is when we are trying to understand and we are trying to control, versus that deep knowing, which is peaceful, which is when you are in a deep state of trust. And then there's just peace. And there's surrender. You're not trying to control. The more illusions we have, or untruths that we're operating in, the more we're trying to control. Okay. Here's another beautiful thing that I wrote down. Air doesn't force clarity. It creates space for it. There's no forcing. This is flow. Thank you, water. It's a breath of unconditional love. Air is about holding everything without attachment. And this is a fundamental for intentional manifestation, is letting the fire, your natural passions ignite, having the space, air giving your fire the space to breathe. Because if you are in overthinking and you are doubting, and then your fire doesn't have the space to breathe. And when you connect to fire and you allow it to transmute all those illusions, you're also creating space for your ideas and your inspiration. Completely lost the thread of where I was going. And that's okay, because I'm in deep trust that you are receiving exactly what is going to support you in this moment. So air creates the space. I'm hoping it's going to come back. I'm going to pause quickly and try and bring it back. It's about manifestation. This 40-day journey is a journey of manifestation, intentional manifestation. And we're bringing in working with the elements, but it's grounded in leadership, because when you are leading yourself and you are being honest and truthful with who you are, then your manifestations become in alignment with you because you are being who you are and honoring who you are, and then having the understanding of what you deeply desire. And then that is the energy that you're vibrating in. And then that is the reality that presents itself to you. And working with the elements is a beautiful tool to support this manifestation. And what we're going to be doing over these 40 days is we're going to be connecting into the unseen using the element of air, because air gives you the gift of seeing the unseen, of seeing the truth, but bringing in these beautiful parallel realities, meaning that there are multiple timelines and multiple of your most abundant timeline, multiple ways that you get to express, to create in the most joyful way in this lifetime. And so part of this manifestation process is, rather than trying to imagine what you desire, and then often when you're not embodied, it's actually off center, it's not in alignment with what your soul desires. But we are going to tap into having your realities that already exist shown to you, which is glorious. And we are moving through this process using the lens of unconditional love. And one of the keys of manifestation is that when we have these visions that are shown to us, not imagined, that we don't hold on to them too tightly. And it brings me back to having these untruths that give us the sense of safety, and also put us into a feeling of that we need to control, and that blocks our ability to manifest because we are so deeply attached. And so one of the patterns that I'm seeing across some of my clients, but just connections that I have in the online space, is, and something that I went through myself, definitely, is that when we are so deeply attached to our businesses, we care so deeply about what we do, we're so attached that we actually block that flow. So air creates the space, air doesn't force clarity, and air creates the space. And that comes through the surrender, that comes through allowance, that comes through the flow. And that's when we'll work with the element of water. But that surrendering and trusting in your natural gifts and your natural talents, and trusting in the magic rather than in the logic that isn't aligned to you, that trusting in the magic is where the magic is. The key underlying message that I'm trying to express here is that when we are too attached to our visions, that it blocks the energy, because that attachment is controlling, and often that attachment becomes distorted because that attachment comes from an energy of judgment. We are just so deeply attached to it that it creates resistance. And our visions, when we do visualizations, because we will be bringing that into the 40 days as well, we're going to get to the manifestation part, I promise. The visions we hold lightly. They are creating a container for us to be able to connect to the energy that they represent. So our visualizations are bridges that connect us to the energy, to the feeling, to the vibration of what we are manifesting. And that's what we're going to focus on in this journey, is the energy and the frequency of what we are manifesting. And then the details don't matter. And yes, we can use details to strengthen that bridge to strengthen that template, that visualization, but we are doing it lightly. We are not attached to it. Okay, enough said. My invitation for you is to stand outside, feel the air, whether it's blowing or not. Let the air blow around you or settle on your skin, and breathe in this energy of truth, and just simply set the intention that you are opening up to your truth rising powerfully. That's it. That's it. And then I do have some reflection questions for you that you can write down. I will pop it into Facebook as well and put it in the YouTube description. Where am I holding back my truth? Or another way of asking that, in fact, another question. Where am I holding back my truth is one question. And what untruths am I holding is another question. Because holding back your truth is slightly different from untruths that you are holding. And then what am I afraid will happen if I fully embody transparency? What am I afraid will happen if I fully embody transparency? And then the last question is, in this moment, what is or what feels to be my deepest truth? Beautiful. Sending you so much love. Chat soon.